जय जय श्री राधे श्री वल्लभाधीश की जय सभी वैष्णवन को जय श्री Krishna. Today is the 22nd day of our 84 Vaishnava Varta, the 84 Vaishnava stories. And we are listening to the story of Gadadhar Das, which is Varta number 8. Bhav Prakash. The real meaning of this is that Sri Thakurji and Sri Acharyaji were pleased with Gadadhar Das. Sri Thakurji and Sri Acharyaji live in every Vaishnava's heart, and Sri Krishna is Buddhi Praraka, the inspirer of the intelligence. Gadadhar Das had a pure and innocent love for the Lord, and so everyone was pleased with him. He then composed and sang this poem. It is the greatest indescribable joy to have Sri Krishna's tender feet upon my head. The destructive fire of time has no effect where the son of Vraja resides, and my mind drinks the nectar of his pastimes and is joyous. Singing his praises, my eyes are always brimming with tears. The threefold miseries cannot affect me, whilst I have faith in none other. I, Gadadhar Das, have worth only when I am seeing his lotus face and touching the dust of his feet. Here, Gadadhar Dasji is stating his humble heart, that he is a very fallen jiva, and he is very blessed that those elevated should remember him. Thus his faith in Sri Thakurji and the Vaishnavas was deeply rooted, and they had love and respect for him. In this way, Gadadhar Das was a very accomplished Vaishnava. Part 2. One day, Gadadhar Das called some Vaishnavas over to take prasad. He made all the other types of preparations, but there were no vegetables. Gadadhar Das asked the Vaishnavas assembled there if one of them could fetch some. Madho Das, Veni Das's brother, who kept a prostitute at his house, asked permission to go and get them. Bhav Prakash. He asked in this way because he knew that they might not want him to do it because of his situation. Part 2 continued. Gadadhar Das then said, "Please do go and fetch them." Bhav Prakash. Gadadhar Das did not have a fault-finding mind. He only saw that Madhav Das was connected to Sri Acharyaji and therefore had no prejudice. Part 2 continued. Madhav Das went and brought back some spinach. When he brought it back, he asked. Gadadhar Das was pleased and asked him to prepare it. Bhav Prakash. Madhav Das had brought the spinach with such love that Gadadhar Das then gave him the seva of preparing it, because in seva the main component is love, and Sri Thakurji will willingly accept such offerings. Part 2 continued. The offerings were then made, and when the time was correct, the prasad was served to all the Vaishnavas present. All of them praised the spinach. Gadadhar Das happily told Madhav Das that Sri Thakurji had enjoyed his offerings and that he would be graced with firm devotion. Madhav Das had just done a little bit of seva, but he did it with humility. Therefore, Sri Thakurji was pleased to accept the offerings. This became apparent when the Vaishnavas praised the preparation. No one is as generous as a Vaishnava. Just by his preparing the spinach, Madhav Das was graced by the great Gadadhar Das and thus released from the never-ending circle of birth and death. Part 3. One day a traveller arrived just outside the village. He asked where he could buy an ox. There were 10 or 15 Brahmins related to Gadadhar Das who were very jealous of him because he had become a devotee. So they told the traveller to go to Gadadhar Das, who would sell him as many oxen as he wanted, but that he must go there and pay him the required money up front, and that he would then receive the ox the next day. The traveller took 100 rupees and went to Gadadhar Das, whom he told to get him an ox. Gadadhar Das said he didn't have any ox, and that the traveller would have to go and ask in the village. But the traveller put the 100 rupees in front of Gadadhar Das and walked off, telling him that he would return the next day to get the ox, and that he had expected Gadadhar Das's answer because the people in the village had told him it would be so. Gadadhar Das realized that they were setting him up. Gadadhar Das told him to come back the next day at noon. The traveller gave him the 100 rupees and left. Gadadhar Das took the money and bought that much worth of supplies. He made all sorts of wonderful preparations, which he offered to Sri Thakurji the next day. He was serving prasad to all the Vaishnavas when the traveller returned. Gadadhar Das told him he had arrived at exactly the right time. "Look," he said, "these are all my lord's oxen. There are some very young ones and some youthful ones. Take your pick." Bhav Prakash. The ox is the manifest form of dharma, that is, viz. Srimad Bhagavatam. Gadadhar Das was saying that nowadays Dharma resides in the Vaishnavas only, and that if the traveller wanted to take up the Dharma, he should look at the Vaishnavas. They are happy to do whatever they are asked, and they do not do what they are told not to. If you feed them, they will eat. Vaishnavas are always satisfied with whatever they might or might not get. Part 3 continued. Sri Thakurji had accepted the offerings made from the travellers' money. The Vaishnavas had happily partaken of the prasad, and Gadadhar Das had spoken to him. The traveller realised the purport of what he was saying, and that Gadadhar Das was a great devotee, whilst the village men were just having a joke to cause a rift. But, he reasoned, because of this, Sri Thakurji accepted offerings from a sinful being like me. Now I wish to surrender and become a disciple and accomplish everything I need in my life. He bowed low to Gadadhar Das, saying that he had been wandering aimlessly round day and night in the ocean of worldly existence for a long time, and now he wanted to become Gadadhar Das's disciple. The latter informed him that he did not take disciples, but that he should go to Adel and become the disciple of Sri Acharyaji, who was his guru. Gadadhar Das knew that this traveller was a blessed divine soul, and so fed him with Mahaprasad. Later the traveller went to Adel and got initiated by a Sri Acharyaji, whereby he perfected his life. Bhav Prakash. Gadadhar Das was such an accomplished Vaishnava that one's life could be perfected by just 1 second's company with him. His heart was very vast and impossible to describe. Gadadhar Das was a recipient of Sri Acharyaji's great grace. Thus concludes Varta 8, the story of Gadadhar Das, which truly has no end. So thus concludes the Varta reading 22 for today, and tomorrow we will read the story of Beni Das and Madhu Das. Aaj ke anand ki jai ho, jai jai Shri Radhe, श्री वल्लभाधीश की जय। सभी वैष्णवन को जय श्री कृष्ण। राधे राधे।